My name is Mark Mardel. I am 71 years old, and today's date is March 28th, 2024. I grew up, basically moved to the Albany Park neighborhood when I was about 11, and uh, became friends with some folks who got radicalized with. I We were hanging out at a friend's house by Central Park in Ainsley, and in the course of an evening, about 100 people would come through. It was a great place to hang out. It was a neighborhood happening. And given the era, we were getting more and more radicalized, like around 69, 70. And one of the things that we decided to do was in response to all the hassles that young people were going through from cops on the street was we decided to start a community center. So we rented out um, the no longer in use Alba bowling alley, which took a lot of work. It was a great deal for the people who owned it because we got a lot of kids to clean out all the debris. There was tons of debris in there. We cleared it out, and we've got some bands to play a benefit. And we used that money to open up a community center on Kedzie, just south of Argyle. And one of the things that we did with that community center was we hooked up with Rising Up Angry with their legal program, and got lawyers for people who needed it. And that was our initial involvement in Rising Up Angry.
And how did you know about the Rising Up Angry legal program?
Um,
Remember?
I can't remember for sure. I'd have to say that we were familiar with the newspaper to be sure. I'm not sure who I'm not sure who we initially met, but we got to know some people, and that was the initial contact. Um, and then over time, the community center couldn't sustain itself, so we let that go. But we were asked to join Rising Up Angry, and we got involved with Rising Up Angry. Um, at first, I was with the legal program, and then given my shy and retiring nature, they moved me to the outreach program, where I went out and um, to schools, parks, neighborhoods, wherever people were, sell papers and just talk about social change.
And what was the legal program?
The legal program was it it involved lawyers who donated their time to help people who needed legal help, be it around housing issues, criminal charges. It was a way to meet people and organize around social change. And the lawyers that I met through Rising Up Angry were great people.
Right. And so then when you went to the outreach program and you went around and talked to people, what were the kinds of things that you were talking to people about? Just, random examples.
Well, certainly the Vietnam War was a huge issue at that point. We were talking about the war, why we were involved in the war, why we shouldn't be involved in the war. And also there was a lot of issues with police brutality, um, police harassment, um, housing issues. Um, Wages, at that point, people weren't being paid huge amounts of money. And one of the more interesting experiences I had in doing outreach was one night, the late Rod Martin and I were going out to do outreach with a gang in the Fullerton, St. Louis area called the Jousters. And they had had a peace treaty with the Bel Airs and the Imperial Gangsters for a while. And when we got there, they were getting ready to fight the Imperial Gangsters. It turned out that a cop from the 14th District, a lieutenant, had told them that the gangsters wanted to fight them 5-on-5. And then the same cop told the gangsters that the jousters wanted to fight them 5-on-5. So they were ready to go. And Rod and I managed to get the leaders of the gangs together and maintain the peace treaty.
That's great.
Yeah, it certainly is a highlight memory that I'll keep with me for quite a while. Um, I
Any
got
other, yeah, go ahead.
I got around to a lot of high schools, parks, and just met a whole lot of people through that. And it's been kind of funny to run into people years later down the road that I knew from the early 70s.
Any other memories of your time in Angry that kind of jump out at you?
Well, all the times I was arrested for selling the paper, it happened quite often. And the funniest one was I was at a high school that I rarely got to just because of the distance. It was Washington High School on the far southeast side, and I was out there selling papers, talking to people, and the cop came up and said he was going to arrest me. I asked what for. He said, I don't know. He called the sergeant. The sergeant came out. And I was in the car for a half hour, and they finally came up with a law that said you can sell a daily paper on the street, but if it's not a daily paper, you can't sell it on the street, and that's what I was arrested for.
Did you beat that charge?
There was none of the arrests that I ever got for my activity in Rising Up Angry ever stuck. You know, it was just plain and sheer harassment to get me off the street.
Uh-huh.
And you know, and it worked. You know, I was in jail, bonded out, and then you know, it never amounted to a thing in court.
So, thinking about your time in oh, wait a second, people's dances. You were a big participant in people's dances, right?
I attended, but I didn't really take part in organizing them.
Oh, okay. I thought, anyway, so as you look back on, your outreach and the legal program and stuff like that, what are some lessons that either positive or negative that you come away from with doing that work? Lessons that have stuck with you for life?
Well, I'll tell you a story that has stuck with me for life, and it was prior to my joining Rising Up Angry. Prior to joining Rising Up Angry, my buddy Jeff and I went out to Berkeley, California to check it out to see if it was a place we might want to stay and live. And we went out there for 2 months. We had to come back for a court date, as a matter of fact. But we volunteered at the Berkeley Tribe, which was the better of the two underground newspapers out there. And one Sunday, we were walking in, a guy named Craig and I were walking into the Berkeley Tribe office, and there was something underneath the door. And it was a communique from people that fashioned themselves and called themselves the New Dawn Tribe. And what it was they said that they were going to blow up the Berkeley police station, but that there was an informer in their midst, and they had to blow off the plans to do so. And they wanted the police to go and disconnect the bombs. What I should have said in the first place was that coming up on that following Tuesday, there was an election, and on one of the proposals on the ballot was for community control of police. And it stood a good chance of winning from all the talk that was around. And that same communique that we came into at the tribe had also been given to radio stations and television stations. So there was no hiding it. And that was on Sunday. And on Monday, the newspaper headlines: plot to blow up Berkeley police station. And on the Tuesday during the election, the proposal lost 2-1 because of that. So it was clear that the New Dawn Tribe, no one had ever heard of it. It was clear that it was something made up just to stop the chances of this proposal being passed. So that was an interesting thing that has stayed with me all these years prior to joining Rising Up Angry. And then when we got back, we decided that Chicago was where we wanted to be, and got involved in Rising Up Angry.
So as I recall, when you got involved in Rising Up Angry, you had long hair.
Oh yeah.
And at the time, the Rising Up Angry was primarily what were called greasers. Um, and so can you talk about the, the little cultural shift going on there, or how you perceived, being a long hair with all these greasers around?
It was kind of funny at first because one of the slogans that Rising Up Angry used was "Revolutionary Greece," and I believe my buddy Jeff and I were like among the first hippies really to be involved. And we would hear little jibes about cut your hair and all that, and I eventually did, but for quite a while, my hair was well past my shoulders, like about 6, 7 inches past the shoulders, and it was never really a major problem with anybody within the organization. I think it was the organization realized that there was a cultural shift going on in this country, and that people were growing their hair, and that was part of a rebellion against the status quo. Um, and I remember like a friend of mine calling me Mark Hippie, but it was all good natured, and I never had a problem dealing with given the appearance of myself with long hair. I never had a problem dealing with gangs or greasers or anybody that I ran into.
So since Rising Up Angry, um, like what have you been doing?
Um, well, I'd have to say that most of what I've done since has been informed by my past in Rising Up Angry. I did community radio on a college radio station in Chicago from Northeastern Illinois University, WZRD. And, I played music that I liked, but I also, the news that I provided was news that I thought people should know about in terms of what government does, what people are doing to what people are doing to fight against oppression. And even today with Facebook, while I do a lot of cultural stuff on Facebook, I also share a lot of political things on Facebook. So I think that it's fair to say that Rising Up Angry has remained a big part of my life. It informs my outlook. And one of the things that Rising Up Angry did was it had political education. And I learned a tremendous amount about power, about the abuse of power, and about what people need to do to reclaim that power.
And what about any of the relationships that you made in Rising Up Angry? Have they continued, not continued? Are you in touch with people or?
Um, People in a lot of ways have gone separate ways, and I'm in touch with some people, and I had a ball at the recent Rising Up Angry reunion. It was just great to see folks. Um, but the reality is that Facebook has really broadened horizons in terms of people that I've gotten to know, and uh, um, yeah, I guess the main thing that I want to say about along those lines is that there's a lot of people in Rising Up Angry that I wish I would see more often.
Uh,
Good comrades, good people, good-hearted people. You don't dedicate your life to social change with little money for no reason. It takes a good heart to do that. And That was something that people in Rising Up Angry had. You know, it was good-hearted people that really worked to serve the people um, and bring about the change that's sorely needed then and is sorely needed now.
Yeah. So as you think back now that you're a young elder, so to speak, uh, what would be something that you learned or some advice that you might give to young people who are wanting to make the kind of change that you were talking about? And you can give more than one piece of advice if you have it.
I'm going to struggle for any advice to give, but um, all I would say is that having a questioning mind is crucial. You know, when things are presented to you, you might go along with it, but you might want to be, as you're going along with it, you might want to be questioning the motives of what you're being told to do, and you might want to question the motives of whoever is above the person that told you what to do. Um, Power is something that um, is controlled by very few people, and it certainly goes beyond the politics of the day. You know, because the politicians are really controlled by the super wealthy. So I would just any advice that I would give would be headlined by being questioning everything that's fed you, whether it's from news media, whether it's um, someone defending the status quo. Questioning is a good thing to do.
Great. Any other closing remarks, thoughts, anything that you would like to throw into this interview?
Um, Given that power has become even more entrenched and smaller cabals of people have retained this power, I would say that it's important not to lose faith that at some point social change will be there, and the social change that we're talking about has happened in small incremental steps, but certainly not on the level that it needs to happen. And for that to happen, people need to be involved. People certainly need to be aware of the politics of the day.
Great. Anything else?
Well, I guess if I'm going to close with something, it would be the old slogan that we always used in Rising Up Angry: "All power to the people."
Okay. Thanks a lot. I'm gonna